Hey, everybody, and welcome to another Major League Baseball record-setting episode. As always, I'm your host, Darren Michael, and with me, the man who was, you could see he's exhausted right now. He hasn't eaten. He was in Miami late last night cheering against the Braves. The Marlins actually flew him down there to cheer against the Braves, Mr. Phil Calise. Phil, I got a quick question for you, man. If you were down there cheering against the Marlins, then why did I see you after the game in the Braves locker room spraying champagne all over everybody?
Well, who doesn't like a good party? Who doesn't like a good party no matter what? You know, win, lose, or draw, a little champagne always makes things better. So, hey,
Well,
kudos to the Braves. 101 wins? No. Yeah. Right?
is there one
101
game?
wins?
Is there one game to go?
Yeah, 101 wins thus
Yeah,
far.
yeah,
Great season. They pulled it out. Listen, they're the World Series champs for a reason,
yeah,
defending champs.
yeah, yeah.
And their road to the World Series again got easier by earning the 2 seed.
They are a dangerous team heading into the playoffs this year.
But that was I will say this, that wouldn't have changed if they were a wild card team or not. They're a dangerous team either way.
True, true, true.
I
But
mean, the
it
best
just,
teams are dangerous teams.
I know,
There's four really top teams, so they're all dangerous.
I know. But you know what? What makes it sweeter is that they were so far back of the Mets, and they came back and they took the Mets down.
I know you like to do this to goat me. We had this conversation off air. The Braves are 77 and 37. The Mets didn't collapse. The Braves played 750
Did,
baseball
did
for
I?
3 months.
I know.
The
Did
Mets
I?
played like the
You're
Mets played like 98 win baseball for the last 3 months. So they
yeah, but
caught them
let me
because
ask you a
they
question. Let me ask you a
played.
question. Did I at one time state that the Mets collapsed?
It's been a narrative that's been out there. And you did kind of earlier today.
No, they just couldn't hold off a team that
I
just
like that
decided
phrase. They couldn't hold off a team who paced from June 1st
to
on
just
to win
crush.
111 games, right?
Yeah,
They were on a
just
111
crushed
win
it.
pace from June 1st on. The Mets were on a 99 win pace for since June 1st, and that was the
And
difference it kept them.
there's your 11 game difference right
Yeah,
there.
that was
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, kudos to them. I mean, listen, they're the defending champs for a reason.
they're good. They're really, really good.
Yeah.
The sweep last week I really enjoyed. Um, but listen, I love how you were there, and even though you were cheering against them, you were invited into the locker room afterward, as of course, because we do have some big fans of the show that are on the Braves, which is great. It's cool that you any good stories from last night that came out of it from the locker room.
Spencer Strider's mustache, always a hot topic. You
Was
know,
that thing
that's
just like was
mu-
that thing just like soaked? I saw you spraying it right in his face. Was that thing just what did
yeah.
that look like? That must have
Yeah,
been
it wasn't
disgusting.
Tom Selleck good, but it's a solid mustache. You know, sometimes I think you got to wake Brian Snedeker up from his nap. He always looks like he's a little bit sleepy. Hey, Brian, you guys won the division. Okay, okay. It's a little late. You know, I think we had to keep Marcelo Zuna out of the, out of the drinking and all the, his hiccups over the last few years. So we
He's
had to
had
keep a
he's
close
had
eye on Marcelo Zuna.
yeah, he's had a few tough
And
moments.
then I think Matt Olson prank called Freddie Freeman to tell him nothing really changed without you.
No,
To which I think Freddie Freeman replied, "Buddy, wake me up when you can break 240.
yeah,
I hit
there you
I
go.
hit 330. So keep your mouth quiet. Keep your mouth quiet." So I think there was a little of that. So
Home runs and RBIs wise, those two guys finished about the same. But yeah, there was a significant difference in batting average and on base percentage.
yeah, but it's always going to be a mystery to me why the Braves so seemingly happily let him go, because I do think, and we'll see if it matters. It's a good segue though. We'll see, and we'll get to our playoff predictions, and we'll preview the playoffs, which start Friday. So it happens quick, and you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
you can thank the little early shutdown in the baseball season for these delayed late October regular season games that have to
that's
be
right.
concluded.
That's right.
But I think where the Matt Olson, because they did a great job trading for Matt Olson and then obviously locking him up to one of the Braves' 30 very affordable contracts that they've been
Yep.
able to figure out how to do.
Yep.
But when you look at what Freddie Freeman got from the Dodgers, also wasn't incredible. It wasn't some mind-numbing salary or anything. I think where the value or the lack of Freddie Freeman's clutch 330 type hitter versus Matt Olson being a 240 hitter could become more pronounced in the playoffs.
It's
We'll
true.
see.
It's true.
Freddie Freeman's just a tougher out. Nobody could argue that. Olson did a very nice job replacing him because replacing Freddie Freeman is quite a task. But there is a 90-point average difference in batting. That's not typically easy to replace. So we'll see. We'll see when the games are at their height and it matters the most if Olson contributes and if he can live up to, Freddie Freeman.
It's true. It's true. Well, listen, I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, the last game of the season is what? The season ends, is it today or tomorrow?
Today.
It is today.
Playoffs start Friday. Friday.
So I hate to do I think we should do kind of a brief baseball recap. And then after the World Series, we'll do a full recap. But, I just wanted to, let's talk about the playoffs a little bit. I know you had some information about, our predictions from the beginning of the season. Why don't we start there and let's see how we did with our predictions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the theme of our look back from our predictions way back, because baseball is a heck of a long season.
Yeah, it is.
So when we go back to probably a late March podcast, you and I threw some names and some predictions on paper. We predicted every playoff team, and proud to say that you and I both hit on 10 of 12, which is pretty good.
Solid.
Pretty good.
Solid,
we had a few differences, but overall we hit on 10 of 12 apiece. Your World Series matchup is still alive. You have Blue Jays defeating the Cardinals to win the World Series. Now, would we say either one of those teams are favorites to get to the World Series, let alone win it? No, but you're still alive, which is nice.
Yeah, yeah.
I am not alive for my entire World Series. I'm alive for my winner, which was the Mets. They're going to take the tougher road to get there now. And I had the White Sox. And I think if we were looking at, because you had the White Sox also being the 2 seed, and I think if we looked at who was the most disappointing team of the regular season, based at least on our predictions, which we were equal on, I had them as a 3, you had them as a 2. The White Sox are an 81 win team. I mean, that they really did not hit the way we thought they would. So if I was saying who's the main team that didn't live up to the regular season hype, it would be the White Sox. If I was naming a team that exceeded expectations,
come on, say it. Come on.
I would say there's probably a few.
What's the big one?
Your Orioles definitely exceeded expectations. Absolutely. They were fighting till the last, realistically,
2 weeks.
3 weeks, 2 weeks to make the playoffs. They never really, they had a great run, which got them in the conversation. They had like a 15-game winning streak or something crazy. And then they just petered out a little bit, which was unfortunate. And to be perfectly honest, they had a bad trade deadline.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, they may not have thought they were going to be close enough that it mattered. But you know what? Instead of trading a Trey Mancini, and who else did they trade? They traded another bat, right? Didn't they trade another hitter?
They traded him. They traded a pitcher.
They traded a couple parts. Instead of adding a couple parts, they subtracted a couple parts. And when they look back, could have been the difference of maybe sneaking into the last wild card spot, maybe. So
you never know.
But they overachieved for sure. And I would say another team that's slightly overachieved. I don't want to make a lot out of it because you had the Phillies making the playoffs. I didn't. I thought the Phillies, when you think about Harper missed most of the year, right? People wrote them off when Harper went down.
Yeah, yeah.
And Wheeler missed some time. So they might have slightly overachieved. So I think those would be the teams. The Orioles by far number 1. And then when you take a quick rundown of our our award predictions, I mean, we're not going to be right on any of these. So we might want to gloss over. We won't talk about your MVP in the NL not even playing one single game this year, Fernando Tatis. So we won't talk about him.
No, he was you had me confused with somebody else. He's the most valuable performance enhancing drug person. That's what he was.
He was a performer, right? He
was nobody that good and that young should be suspended for an entire season because of PEDs. You got to use your head,
Listen.
But listen, from the words of my mom, I don't normally watch the Major League Baseball playoffs, but it's so exciting this year because there's so many really good teams. I think I'm going to watch it.
I like that.
I mean, it literally, I mean, when you think about these matchups, I mean, to me, the AL is completely wide open. It really is. There's really, To me, there's nobody that's really going to be favored. I mean, the
Well,
Yankees,
did you say the AL?
the AL, yes. I think the AL is wide open.
I would disagree with that. But what I was going to say is if you look at the NL is all season was the better league. It
Yeah.
it clearly is the better league. They've produced 3 100 win teams. So it's clearly the better league. I don't know how much I would say the AL is wide open because to me,
Yeah.
one team clearly distanced themselves all season from everyone else, and that would be the Astros.
Oh,
So
they
if you
did.
were if you were saying to me who's more like the NL is wide open to me,
Yeah. Yeah.
just because I mean the strength of 3 100 win teams alone, the Dodgers winning 110, but the Braves being the World Series defending champs, to me the NL is more wouldn't shock me if you could name a few teams that came out of it. If anybody but the Astros comes out of the AL, I will be surprised.
See, but I don't look at it that way. I'm looking at it like the Astros. I mean, yeah, they're going to have to play the winner of Seattle and Toronto, both of whom are playing really good ball right now. And you got to remember, I just watched the Orioles take down the Astros. So maybe I don't have good thoughts in my head about the Astros, but to me, I think either of those teams could beat Houston. I think on the other side, Tampa Bay and Cleveland. Cleveland must have been the most under the radar team ever because you never heard anything about them the entire season.
Somebody asked me, they were making prop bets a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Prop bets on teams that could sneak, like based on like they didn't say don't give me the favorites. Give me a team that's under the radar that can get
Yeah.
to the World Series. In the American League, I gave them Cleveland. And simply because of this, you're right. They've ran under the radar all year, partially because the White Sox took all the air out of that division. People
Oh,
thought they were the best
terrible.
team.
Yep.
But what Cleveland does typically is what you look for if you're looking for a formula to be an upset, to ride a wave in the postseason. They have a couple of top end starting pitchers. They have an excellent hard throwing bullpen, and they have like pesky hitters. That's what Cleveland has. Sometimes that translates in the postseason.
It's true.
Jose Ramirez is an underrated superstar, but they got a lot of guys that are pesky hitters. They could be a little bit tricky. They got Bieber to front line the rotation. They got a couple of hard throwing arms, and they got a couple of great bullpen guys.
Yeah.
They could be an issue. They may not be such an easy out.
They could be.
They'd be a team I'd look out for as like if I wanted to pick an upset, they'd be a team I could consider.
I look at the NL differently than you do. I mean, yeah, there's 300 win teams. Um, but I look at the Dodgers and Atlanta as being heads and shoulders above everybody else. And I love the fact that for Atlanta, I love that they have to go up against the Phils and Cardinals because I think that's a much easier win than going up against the Padres and the Mets. I think that's going to be a much tougher matchup for the Dodgers. But the Dodgers pitching with the Mets not fantastic hitting is not a recipe for success. I mean, that's a tough call. Listen, anybody playing against the Dodgers is going to be tough, but I just that's going to be a little disappointing. I kind of wish for the Mets, I kind of wish that they had won their division because then they would have a nice, much easier road to get into the championship.
Well, I cannot dispute that the Mets not winning the division despite 100 wins has left them in a much more challenging postseason road, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a
Well,
doubt.
I wanted to. So do you want to revise some predictions here? What do you think? What do you think the World
Well,
Series is going to be like?
well, so do we want to touch real quick on just for a minute? I think part of your mom and part of a lot of people that think this season was so great is because you had 3 great milestones, right? Miguel Cabrera got to 3,000 hits a long time ago.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
forget, but it happened. Obviously, Mr. Pujols chased and caught 700, which is a major milestone in baseball
Huge.
history.
Huge.
And
Yep.
and who could have expected it the way his last few years was going? He really actually had a really good year this year.
Yeah. He
Um,
did. He did. He played
and
well.
then obviously down to the next to last day of the season, Aaron Judge finally got to 62. I mean, he was on just a tear all year. He obviously slowed up towards the end. He was feeling the pressure of getting to
Oh
62,
yeah. Oh yeah.
and then he hit 62. And I would like to say I'm a Mets fan. I'm not. I like Aaron Judge though. He's a likable guy.
He
Of
is.
all the Yankees that have come and gone, he's not someone I dislike by
No.
nature. I'd like him
No.
more in another uniform, but I certainly don't dislike him in a Yankee uniform. What I will say, and this is a little bit to all Yankee fans that watch our podcast, all probably 20 of them. We probably have a healthy 20 to 30 Yankee fans that probably check us out, maybe a little more actually. I will say this narratives that New York sports media has gone with for the last several weeks, and then it was all culminated with the home run last night, that Aaron Judge is the home run king, the regular season home run king because he hit 62, is so big, just patently offensive. For one, I don't hear any Yankee fans that want to give back their 2000 World Series when Roger Clemens was roid raging, throwing shattered bats at Mike Piazza, or Jason Giambi's stats, or A-Rod, who was juicing 99% of his career, which included 60% in a pinstripe uniform, or any of the other Pettit, who had the 2-year run where he was juicing or doing something because he got hurt. Whatever. The point is, we can't give back. That era is tainted by steroids.
Yep.
Barry Bonds was by far the best of all using them, and the year he had is so historic.
Allegedly.
You cannot do that now. Like the Yankees can't, the Yankee fans, and there's a lot of them, they can't rewrite history and say Aaron Judge is now the home run king for regular season. Barry Bonds hit 73 home runs. He is the home run king. I don't love it. I don't like Barry Bonds. I'm not a fan. Not a fan of his at all. But Aaron Judge doesn't get to somehow wipe out Barry Bonds because somebody hit 62. And by the way, that doesn't even include the fact that, I forget who said this, but Aaron Judge hit the 7th most home runs ever in a season. Somehow people are trying to make him out to be the home run king. Sosa and McGuire had 63, 65, 66, whatever they hit. There was a bunch of players, not a bunch of players, 3 players have all hit more than 62. So we got to pump the brakes. Like the steroid era existed. We can't take back all the World Series that were won by all the teams that had steroid guys. We can't take back the fact that Barry Bonds is the all-time home run leader, and yada, yada, yada along the line. So to me, it's a great season.
Yeah.
I think it should just be simply stated. He broke Roger Maris's record as a Yankee. He's the all-time AL leader in home runs for a season.
Yes.
And there's a lot. I mean, that's a great accomplishment. But let's not eliminate Barry Bonds and Sosa and McGuire just because we think they did steroids or they did do steroids. Like, because it doesn't matter. Like, there's lots of things that have been won with people who did steroids.
Well, not only that, I mean, Judge is 6'7", 280. I don't think the guy needs to do steroids. He connects on the ball. It's gonna go. But you know what? To be honest with you, you still have to be able to put the ball over the wall. I don't care if it means that you can hit the ball farther or not. You still have to be able to connect the right way and hit it the right trajectory so it's gonna go over the wall.
And listen, I know it was pre-integration period, and I don't like to usually get on the defending of Babe Ruth because I don't want to. It's 100 years old, whatever. I know it was pre-integration. I know he hit off all white people. He certainly wasn't doing steroids, and he hit 60 home runs at a time where teams were hitting 30 home runs in a season.
Yeah.
So like, you could say it's against the inferior competition. Well, based on his limited weight training and his abuse of his own body, he was tenfold better than the next best hitter. So, so if we're just talking about dominant seasons, you could argue Ruth's 60 home run seasons even more dominant than Bonds' 73 home run season.
Yeah, you have to put it all into perspective.
Yeah, you got to put it into perspective. Baseball's had many different errors. You can't eliminate one error to accentuate another.
And you know what? Roger Maris' season was a little bit different too, because you got to remember, this is a guy that was getting death threats along the way. People were such big fans of Babe Ruth. He was literally getting death threats for potentially taking down Ruth's record. This guy, I've heard all kinds of stories about this guy. I mean, it was a ton of pressure, ton of stress this guy was under.
Well, and he was also battling the newest Yankee hero, Mickey Mantle, who was on pace chasing Ruth with him that year.
Yeah.
So nobody was even rooting for him at all because they were rooting against him for Mantle's sake.
I think Mantle had 56 home runs that year.
He had a monster year that year.
Yeah. So it was just a big year. But you know what? You mentioned a couple guys. Cabrera got 3,000 hits. He also got 600 doubles, which was big.
Yep.
And Cabrera, something else I want to talk about. And I think we're going to talk more about these guys later. But do you know that he's the second person ever to hit 500 home runs, 600 doubles, 3,000 hits, and bat 300? Do you know who the first one is?
The 300 average is throwing me off. He career average, you mean, being 300?
Yep, 3,000 hits, 500 home runs, 600 doubles, 300 average.
The first one to do it, you mean?
Yeah, he's only the second one ever. Because it's funny, you think about a guy like Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth didn't have 3,000 hits.
No, I
He hit
know,
like
and that no,
2,900 or something.
is it? It's not Willie Mays.
It is Henry Aaron.
It is. I didn't think Hank Aaron hit over 300 for his career because I know he played
Only
so long. I didn't think his average would have stayed that high.
Yeah, a couple other milestones. Molina, is it Benji Molina? He set the record for the most career putouts by a catcher, and him and Adam Wainwright set the record for most games together, 325 games as battery, which
Yeah,
is
it's not
impressive.
Benji Molina. It's Yadier.
Yadier, that's right, that's right. Um, Scherzer got to 200 wins. Verlander got to 3,000 inning pitched and potentially his third Cy Young. It sure looks like it's locked up. And most impressively, the Orioles increased their win total by at least 30 games. Just putting it out there. Just putting it out there. So, but not only that, the other thing that I want to mention was Ohtani. You know, I'm not an Ohtani guy, but oh my
Are you going to come
God,
around at some
his
point?
his
Are you going to come
stats,
around?
dude, his stats are absurd. My question for you is,
What
I
does the
mean,
guy got to do to be liked by Darren Michael? I mean, I might as well just call him Shohei LeBron Ohtani.
let me ask you a question, okay? I mean, they signed him for they set the record for signing him for $30 million next year in a salary eligible arbitration season. But what happens to that guy if you put him on, I don't know, a team that can hit?
Well, I don't know. I mean, but I just think
I mean, it's absurd. I mean, his ERA on the season was 2.3. It led the league with 12 Ks per 9 innings. I mean, I'm not a fan, but it's impressive what he's doing. Really, really impressive.
well, thanks for coming along finally. I mean, you wanted to give it to Guerrero last year. I understand Judge is going to win it this year, but like, how could you not be the MVP when you're a top 5 pitcher and top 5 hitter in your own league
I don't think he's a
each
top five
year?
hitter. Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, it's
Numbers are pretty
okay, and okay, but
30, 30, 90. He's a good
okay,
hitter. He's a
and
top 5
how
pitcher.
okay, and how did the Angels do this year?
Understood, but we don't, but the MVP is not often given to the guy on the team that does the best. You know that.
It's the most valuable player. Okay,
That's the name of the award,
let
but
me
how many
ask you a
guys have
question.
gotten it on teams that aren't
Let,
that good? It happens all the time.
nah, not as often as you think. But let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. How would the Angels have done without him? Would they have been good or bad?
Probably 10 games worse.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They were terrible anyway. The
Well, I
Yankees.
mean,
Okay, and how many games would the Yankees have not won if Judge?
I'm not disputing Aaron Judge deserves the MVP this year.
That's where I'm saying it. And it's like, remember, I think I told you a long time ago the story about Ralph Kiner, how he walked into the
Yeah,
owner's office,
that's a
right?
good
And
story.
he wanted a raise, and the guy's like, "Well, how did we finish? Well, we finished in last." And he goes, "I could have finished in last without you, Ralph." It's the same thing. The Angels would have sucked without him. So yeah, he's great. Put him on a team where an actual decent team where he can make the kind of difference that Aaron Judge made. Then we'll talk. The stats are incredible, but it's not turning into wins. And at the end of the season, what's the only thing that truly matters is winning a World Series. I mean, that's what it's all about,
Well,
being a winning
I
team.
hear you.
So,
I hear you. You're eliminating a lot of great players by saying you got to be competing for a division title to win the MVP that year. But I get it.
I mean,
I
you
hear you.
don't have to be, but I think
I
your
mean,
team's got
A-Rod's won it on a last place team. They've given MVPs to guys
no. I
on
mean,
bad
the
teams.
the
It's
the
not.
one
He's not
guy
the
that
first one.
the Andre Dawson. Remember, he had 49 home runs one year, and he was the best player in the league. Was he the
Right.
most valuable player? His team finished in last place.
They should just change the award or split it. Best player in the league and most valuable player to your team. They should just create 2 awards.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
okay with that.
the problem is when you say MVP, it's looked at differently by different people.
Yeah,
So
of course.
they've never really defined it, and that's
And
the
by the way,
problem.
even with the year Aaron Judge has had, and he's not going to win the Triple Crown, barring some craziness with the batting average, but it's a historic year. I would give him the MVP. But there will be a percentage of people that are just so blown away by what Ohtani's doing, which has never been
Absolutely.
done, or maybe you want to say since Babe Ruth. I mean, anything that hasn't been done since Babe Ruth,
Yeah, yeah.
it's 100+ years ago.
I'm not
He's doing
arguing
it
with
at a
that.
very high level.
I'm not
It's
arguing with
going to
that.
get 20 or 30% of the beat writers to vote for him every year, just because if he can do that, it's just absurd.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, I don't disagree. I don't
So
disagree.
let's make quick playoff predictions. You said,
All
do I
right.
want to revise anything? So your World Series is Jays over Cardinals.
Yeah.
without getting into all the details of the running up to it, do you have
Yeah.
any one team you want to say to look out for, and do you want to keep your World Series prediction?
You know, I'm loving Atlanta. I'm
Okay.
loving the Braves. I know it's tough to repeat, but they are just like you said. I mean, they've just the last few months of the season, they have just been on fire, and I don't know if anybody can take them. I really, really don't.
Braves
So
over who?
I think the
Sticking
Braves
with the Jays?
are
Braves
going
over
to
Jays?
win.
Or switching? Are you doing a
Uh,
full switch or a half switch?
oh man, you know what? I'm gonna keep Toronto. Gotta keep one team in there, but I do want to switch to the Atlanta, and I'm proud of the fact that I still do have both teams alive. But
You do,
I'm
but
gonna
you've
go with
cast the Cardinals aside like a rolling stone. Get out of here.
I'm gonna go with Toronto and Atlanta, and I think Atlanta is gonna repeat this year. I really do.
So my predictions have to be tweaked a bit no matter what, because I had the White Sox in the World Series. I'm gonna go. So we disagreed a little bit. If the Astros with a healthy Verlander
Yeah,
and the ability they have to be clutch, it seems like every year in postseason time, they got the right balance of a couple of thumpers and a lot
yeah,
of guys who are just pesky, tough outs. They're as battle tested. They're the most battle tested team in the
oh yeah,
postseason, and
oh
that
yeah,
includes the Braves and Dodgers, just because of the length of time they've been good. They've had a chip on their shoulder since that the world told them they were cheaters and didn't deserve their ring. They've been awesome ever since. Um,
true.
I'm going to put them in the World Series. I just don't think this is a vintage Yankee team. Um, and
Yep,
I'm not a believer like you in the wild card teams. I'm not a believer. I do like the Guardians, and it's weird to even say that. And I actually think they might be the team that beats Tampa and beats the Yankees and
yeah,
actually
good.
gets to the ALCS. I think there's a little magic there. I think they could be pesky, but the Astros are getting to the World Series. And I'm not, obviously, the Braves or the Dodgers are no brainers, right? I mean, the Dodgers won 110 games and the Braves are the Braves. So either one you can't go wrong with. I'll just stick with the Mets because I picked them at the beginning of the year. I'm not going to change it now. I think I'm not going to, I'm trying not to let myself, I could easily see the Mets losing to the Padres. The Padres are a heck of a pesky team to meet in a wild card
Yeah,
round.
yeah, they
So
are. They
I'm
are.
going to say the Mets are going to get to the World Series with an acknowledgement that the Padres could knock them out because the Padres have, I don't know, a $300 million payroll probably, even though 40 of it's sitting in steroid jail. Um, Darvish could be as good as it gets. So they're super tough. I'm just going to stick with the Mets and go. If DeGrom and Scherzer put it together, they could be very difficult to deal with in the playoffs,
They
and
could.
that's obviously possible. So I'll go Mets, Astros, and as a Met fan, if I'm going to pick that, I might as well just take the Mets to win it. That's what I had in the preseason. I might as well stick to having a shot to be right for my preseason pick. You're going, you're going Braves over Jays, right? That's your
Yeah, yeah.
your
So
tweak, your switch.
we're each entitled to one switch. So there we go.
Yeah, I switched one thing, you switched one thing.
There we go.
All
Yeah,
right.
that works out well. So it'll be exciting. It'll be exciting. Let's move on though. I want to talk a little college football, and you have continued your hot streak, man. Phil's big three, 2-1 again, 11-4 on the season, 3-2 in the locks. The uh
Yep.
the lock was tough last week. The lock was tough, man. I don't know what's going on with that West Coast, but to
Yeah,
see
I got to stay.
UCLA
Yeah.
actually win a game is crazy.
Yeah, I know. The Pac-12 is not something I have even remote pulse on because it's the Pac-12. They play games, at 10:30 on Friday nights on the East Coast. They play lots of games at 10:30 at night on Saturday night. Anybody, if you've watched college football all day and then are still up till 1 in the morning watching it, well, you're a better man than me, and probably don't have the amount of youth sports I deal with. So I
No, well,
definitely I definitely don't see any of
no,
that.
I agree. I agree. But listen, there's a couple things that I just wanted to bring up. One of them was Ole Miss defeated number 7 Kentucky 22 to 19, reminding them. I think after the game, Ole Miss was interviewed and they said, "Hey, what do you have to say about the game?" And they said, we just wanted to come out here and remind Kentucky that they're a basketball school, not a football school.
Mm.
And then Kansas, who's 5-0, they are now ranked number 19 somehow. They're going up against, here's their next games, right? Here's the rest of their season: TCU, Oklahoma, Baylor, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, Texas, and Kansas State. I think these teams I think Kansas is the next team that's going to learn the hard way that they're also not a football school. They're strictly a basketball school. So 5-0, congratulations to Kansas on winning 5 easy games. You're done. I think you might end the season with only 5 wins anyway. I thought it was interesting that UGA basically needed 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to get past a really, really not difficult Missouri team. But the one thing that I did like is that finally the voters are realizing, you know what, 2 crappy wins in a row against schools that you should have destroyed doesn't mean that you're the number one team. And I like when things like that happen. I mean, I'm not saying that Alabama is the number one team in the country, but I like how Alabama took care of business. They moved up, and I like how Georgia moved down to number 2 because I think there's certain expectations that have to be on your shoulders to be the number one team.
Yeah, I mean,
We talk about it
again,
a million times how there shouldn't even be rankings, but the fact of the matter is, if you're just, you're winning these games like, I don't know what they were favored by. They're probably favored by 20 points, and they squeak out a 4-point win in the fourth quarter. I mean, that's ridiculous. And then the
yep.
last thing that I want to mention was Oklahoma, man. How far have they fallen? They've lost 2 in a row. They allowed 41 points to TCU in the first half alone. I mean, that is just ridiculous. So their second loss in a row, they lost to Kansas State. They're no longer in the top 25. It turns out, I guess, when they lost half their team, they lost half their wins too. you know, so it's unbelievable. So anyway, so that's just a quick summary on the college football.
Yeah.
And I think we should go into your Phil's big 3 right now. I want to hear some predictions for this weekend.
Yeah, so 11-4, 3-2 best bets, plotting along. 11-4 is a good record. It's not
Yep.
easy. As I remind our audience every week, I try to pick what I can kind of come up with as the 2 best games of the week based on
Yep.
ranking. So I'm not even picking my 3 favorite games. I'm just kind of looking around. And I said, because of the way they do rankings, I'm going to probably be picking 1 or 2 SEC games every week. So again, the 12 o'clock kickoff, Tennessee travels to the Bayou, to Mr. Brian Kelly's new hometown. And I was on a mini rant about how Tennessee has been overrated consistently for years and years. And they've had a very good year this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't knock anything they've done this year. I know people have been very high on the quarterback Hooker, which is an unfortunate name for your last name being, you know, anything. But he's obviously looks like a big time player.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen a little bit of LSU this year, and their record to me is a little deceiving, although you can go either way with it. I mean, they obviously had the heartbreaking loss to Florida State to start the season. They also probably had no business winning at Auburn last week, and the whole game changed on a dime. I don't know if you saw it. Auburn was up 17-0, and LSU created a turnover for 6. Auburn came back, fumbled the kick, and the game went from like Auburn driving to go up at least 20 to like 17-7. And then like a couple minutes later,
Yeah.
it was 17-14. I mean, the game moved on a dime.
Yeah.
So I'm not a big believer in LSU. I guess if Tennessee has a big time team, laying 3 points at LSU should be manageable. So
Yeah.
I'm going to lay the 3 points and take Tennessee in the game. It's a
Well,
little bit more of a knock on. I don't think LSU's quite that good. And if if Tennessee's truly good, 3 points is quite manageable. So
Well, here's LSU's problem, and they've definitely overachieved. Yeah, they're
no, they
4.
have. They've won a couple close games, and
But here's their problem. Here's their next 4 games, right? At least they've got Tennessee at home, they're at Florida, then they've got Ole Miss at home, and then they've got Alabama at home. So
yeah.
they got some tough. So enjoy your 25th ranking, Brian Kelly,
Yeah, well, I
because
mean, listen,
it's not going to go very far.
Florida State's okay. They lost to them, and Auburn. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Auburn got waxed to Penn State. This is not exactly a vintage Auburn team that's 3-2. I think they lost to Penn State pretty handily. Yes, they
Yeah.
did. They lost 41-12 to Penn State. So they lost 41-12 at home to Penn State.
Yeah. Well, Penn
So,
State looks like a decent team.
no, they do, but Auburn should not lose by 30 at home to Penn State. So
No.
Auburn is obviously not a very good team this year.
No,
So the
obviously.
fact that LSU had to pull out a game in which they trailed 17-0 doesn't bode. LSU had to pull out a game, doesn't bode well. The next game, I mean, listen, how often is Kansas ranked? So we definitely got to pick the Kansas TCU game. Game day is going to be there. Kansas is ranked. I'm assuming, I don't know, they're going to bring back every legendary Kansas basketball player because they can't bring back the football players. And TCU goes into David Booth Kansas Memorial Stadium. Yes, you got that right. David Booth, Kansas Memorial Stadium. TCU is a solid Big 12 program. They've won, 8, 9 games every year, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like they're like a pretty consistent, steady Eddie, 8-4 type of team every year. I
Yep.
feel like they pull off an upset every year. They lose a couple of close games to good teams every year. They're just like a nice program. They've become a nice program.
Yeah. Yeah. They have.
Kansas is usually, the doormats of doormats. They get 7 points at home, Kansas. I'll be a little nostalgic and take them. I'll say it's the biggest game they've played in 50 years. They're ranked. They're playing a ranked team. You get 7 points. I'll take the points and I'll be a little nostalgic with them. Why not?
All right. All right. Let's see
Who's
what
not pulling for the Kansas Jayhawks in football?
happens.
And then my last game, which is my best bet, which for being 11-4, my overall best bet record's only 3-2. So I haven't done a total bang up job with my best bets. And that's because I did get caught picking the Pac-12 twice now, which I probably
Yeah.
shouldn't have done. I've done some things I probably shouldn't have done with the best bets. I'm going to go a little bit more to just a gut feeling on a best bet.
Okay.
It's not a pick based on how this team has performed. It's a pick based on a team that's had a really bad year that's going to circle this game as their Super Bowl for 1 week. And they're just having a bad year. And that is the Ohio State Buckeyes going into East Lansing to face Michigan State. Michigan State's having an awful year. But they're getting 27 points. And I just got a feeling Ohio State's going to be in a closer game than they want to be in this game.
Yep.
Not super close, but just closer than 27. Maybe it's, 24-17 going into the fourth or something closer than people think. And Ohio State wins by, 17 or so. But I just have this weird feeling. There's a good coach there. I can't imagine all their talent has went away. It's a rivalry game. And I just think they'll have a little something. This is the game they got to be circling as like their game of the year. So I'm going to take Michigan State getting 27.
Yeah, it has to be because Michigan State they've lost 3 in a row and
they just had a bad year. They're off to a bad start.
Losses. Yeah, they definitely need to.
It's just kind of a desperation game. Ohio State comes in undefeated. They're going to win the game. They're probably not locked into taking Michigan State super seriously. They're 2-3, but it is a rival game. And Michigan State's been known over the years to be a tough Big Ten opponent to the better teams. They always sneak up and play a few top teams in there. Whoever the top teams are every year, they always give a few teams trouble. So I'm gonna go with it.
No, that's good. That's good. Well, you heard it here first, man. What are you betting today? Are you feeling how good are you feeling about this game?
We're gonna bet a nice steak dinner with your spouse. That's what we're gonna bet today. Like $175, $200 dinner.
All right.
That's what we're gonna bet.
All right.
Nothing crazy, but that's where we're gonna go.
Fair enough. Let's move over to NFL. I've got 6 NFL thoughts for you today.
Okay.
Number one, the Lions at 1-3. They lead the NFL in points scored, and they lead the NFL in points allowed. Okay, this is not a position you want to be in. And actually, through the first 4 games of the season, they've set an NFL record for most total combined points of 281. Which for all of you out there that can't do math, that's a little over 70 points a game on average. So my question to you is this: can their defense get any better? Because obviously the offense can't get any better than they're playing right now. I mean, they're playing at such a high level. But can their defense actually get better so they can actually win some games here?
I saw a tweet that said if the Lions defense was just bad, they'd be 3-1.
It's true, right?
So yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. I don't know if they can overcome. I mean, obviously they're just a bad defense with a really promising offense. And
yeah,
Jared Goff's having a monster year, and he even put up a ton of points last week without like half his weapons. So I don't know what's more likely, right? Now, keep in mind, Detroit is not exactly a booming franchise in the NFL.
That's true.
So is it more likely Jared Goff falls back to his career numbers and the Lions become dreadful? Or is it more likely the Lions defense, which is historically bad or at least heading in that direction, right the ship and become average? I'm probably going to guess Goff returns somewhat to what he normally is. is more likely.
Yeah, it sure
If I had
seems.
to guess.
Yeah, I don't know if they can get, but you're right though. They do have a lot of weapons there,
Yeah.
which is nice, and they are playing well. But yeah, I
But
mean,
but very lion-like. They're 1-3 playing well.
yeah, isn't
So
that ridiculous? Playing well offensively, but you know, it
offensively.
just goes to show. Like, and that tweet is perfect. If they were just bad, they'd be 3-1. That is absolutely perfect. But they are just god awful, and they had the number 1 pick in the draft last year, or number 2 pick in the draft. I'm sorry.
And it's hard for me to defend anything about the Lions right now, though, because, and I know I'm going to be biased, but like Geno Smith walked in there and dropped 48 on you.
I
I mean,
know.
like, that's
I
hard to stomach.
I got nothing. I got nothing.
Yeah. I know he's actually been a solid backup and he's shown signs that he can kind of run a team and all that.
He's
But my
playing really
goodness.
well.
No,
He's
he is
playing
playing
really,
well, but
really well.
my
But
goodness.
you got to remember, we're not even a quarter of the way through the season yet.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a lot of time for him to go back and be the
Listen,
guy.
Geno Smith is far and away outperforming Russell Wilson right now.
Oh, he's far and away outperforming a lot of guys.
Right.
A
So
lot of guys. All right, including our number 2 thought of the week, and that is Baker Mayfield experiment. And the question is this coming to an end? 4 games, 54.7% completion percentage, 747 yards, 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. There's only 2 worst passers that have ratings that are worse than his, and that's Mitch Trubisky and I don't know what happened to Justin Fields. So the question is, I don't know exactly when Sam Darnold comes back, but
not
I mean,
back anytime soon. So I don't even know where they go from here.
I mean, how much are they regretting their decision? And is this guy? It turns out, it seems to me like there's a reason nobody wanted him.
Well, I don't know how much they could regret their decision. I mean, they had Sam Darnold, who I think they knew wasn't the answer. They didn't have to give up much for Baker Mayfield. It seemed like a low hanging risk, low hanging fruit to take a shot at it. So I don't know how much I can crush them for trading for him. Obviously, in hindsight, they could have been more forceful early in the offseason going after Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the guy they could have went after. But then once they didn't like what they were seeing in Trey Lance, I think that the Niners weren't going to trade him. So there was a window to trade for him, and then that went away.
You're right.
So, I mean, I don't think there was a ton of options. I think, we always talk about this. There's not 32 good starting NFL quarterbacks, and there's 32 jobs. There's not 32 NFL ready quarterbacks that are going to do a competent job. There's just not.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but hopefully that experiment will be over soon, and he'll just be relinquished to a backup role. He'll be in the league for a long time, but I don't know if he's ever going to be a starter again.
I don't know if he's going to be in the league a long time, though, because is he going to be willing to be a backup, or is he going to be like a bad backup where teams don't want to deal with him?
He's not going to have a choice. He'll stick around. But then again, listen, if teams keep signing Carson Wentz to be a starting quarterback, so anything's possible, right?
Sure.
Number 3, the Steelers coming off an embarrassing loss to the New York Jitterbuckers. They're handing the reins over to Kenny Small Hands Pickett, who, let's be honest, he earned his starting job. 10 for 13 for 120 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions and 2 rushing touchdowns. So how bad is Mitch Trubisky that this kind of performance enables him to become the starting quarterback?
Well, I think it's fair to give him the job. Trubisky is what he is. He's a known commodity. He's not a good quarterback. I mean, the Steelers, he's not, though. Mitch Trubisky, I mean, he was drafted with the 2nd pick by the Bears, 3-4 years ago? Not the first pick.
I thought he was the first overall pick.
No, he wasn't the first overall pick. I think he was the 2nd or 3rd. He wasn't the first pick.
Don't make me look that up.
I'm not wrong. He was not the first pick. I mean, they know what they have. They need to turn the page to Kenny Pickett. They just don't have a win-ready team around them. Either one of these quarterbacks weren't going to, turn the franchise around. I think they thought they had more talent around them, and obviously TJ Watt being hurt. So let's give Pickett a little time before we destroy him.
Well, what are we looking at with his first with his?
I watched the whole game. He didn't play that bad. He actually gave them a spark. He threw into coverage a couple times. He didn't get help from Claypool on a jump ball where I think that he didn't make the best effort on it. He had a tip ball get picked. I mean, 10 for 13. He completed all of his passes, if we're being fair. He was 13 for 13. 3 to the Jets, 10 to the Steelers.
You know what?
Ran 2 in. He actually gave them a spark. They were losing when they brought him in. He gave them a 10-point lead. He didn't play defense in the 4th quarter. So I can't kill him. He actually didn't play bad. Now, what he does in Buffalo this week, that could be ugly. But
let's just say I'm kind of interested to see what happens there and see if his small hand. I think his small hands are responsible for the 3 interceptions personally.
yeah, exactly.
That's just what I'm saying. All right, number four. Number four is 2018 Saquon Barkley back. And if you need to be reminded what kind of season he had, that was his rookie year. He rushed for 1,307 yards, 5.0 yards a carry, 11 touchdowns, also caught 91 passes for 4 touchdowns. He has he's got 463 yards in 2022, 5.5 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns. I mean, it seems like he's finally healthy. Are we going to see the 2018 Saquon Barkley?
We are seeing him without a doubt. So yeah, I mean, he's back. And it may be more impressive than 2018 or equally as impressive because the Giants don't have any receivers really.
Yep.
People know they're going to run the ball. They're still running the ball. Daniel Jones isn't very good. He's okay. I don't think he's as bad as some people make him out to be. He's okay. But if you're gearing up to play the Giants, you're gearing up to stop Saquon Barkley, and he's still getting loose. So he's having a great year so far.
Yeah.
Fantasy owners are very happy, and some of them are going, I had him last year, he sucked. The year before he sucked. The year before he was hurt. Finally, he's great again. Because I was on that. I had him one of those bad years too. So
yeah, he's put together a nice year so far. So we'll see what happens with him. It's exciting to watch, and it's exciting that the Giants are 3-1 and playing better ball than we've seen out of them in a long time. Thought number 5, the Jets. The Jets are 2-2. Unbelievable. Can they beat Miami at home? And what are the expectations of Zach Wilson, especially since the entire offensive line is hurt?
that's the issue. If they had a healthy offensive line, I really think you could be very confident that they could move the ball. We talked about this a bunch of times. They have a lot of weapons. Joe Flacco had so many limitations with his mobility that some of that wasn't on display. And if you could get around an edge guy, he wasn't going to step up in the pocket. He wasn't going to be able to do certain things. So moving to Zach Wilson, while he was a bit rusty and he didn't make all the throws last week, it was his first game back. He did enough to show you, okay, if the offensive line can stabilize, Zach Wilson could really make every throw. He can be elusive with his feet. And then you got these game-breaking receivers and Breece Hall and Michael Carter. There's enough to keep you honest all around. I think the thing that holds the Jets back from being good versus probably being average, which is where they're more likely to be, which, by the way, would be a significant improvement. They haven't been average in a decade. So to be average, and by average, I mean 8-9 or 9-8, that would be a major improvement. But the difference of them being average to being a playoff team is probably going to be the offensive line that's just so banged up, which is unfortunate. You hope it doesn't get Wilson hurt. You hope it can be decent enough and the receivers can get separation quick enough that he can get the ball out and they can still have a good, fun offense. Because that's always been as a Jet fan, has always been my hope for them this year. Give me an exciting team that maybe isn't ready to win at a level of a playoff team, but that I could see all the promise. And through 4 weeks, understanding Flacco's been the quarterback for 3 of them, I think their at least trajectory is pointed in that direction. They got some exciting defensive playmakers. They got some exciting offensive playmakers. The average age of the team has got to be on the young side. They got a lot of young players.
Yep.
There's enough there, especially as a Jet fan with all the pain we've had, to be excited. So I'm happy with that.
That's good. It's all good stuff. And the last but not least, number 6, the NFL West, all 2-2. Who's really the best team in that division? You know, I know that San Francisco, now that they've got the quarterback change, they're good. LA Rams, the defending Super Bowl champion. Seattle, I mean, they've just come out of nowhere with Geno Smith playing beyond his mind. And in Arizona, somehow they've won 2 games. Where are we going here?
The Niners are one of those, I call them blessed franchises. There's like 15 of them in all the let's call it the 4 major sports. There's 15 of them. I'm not going to tick them off. That when I say blessed, they always have something break their way to stay being good. In this case, the Niners were going to trade their rock steady backup quarterback for a bad rookie that they felt they needed to force feed. And now the Niners have a legitimate thought they can get out of the NFC because their defensive line is loaded. The principles of how they play can stay exactly the same. They like to run the football. They like to throw to the tight end. Garoppolo can manage a team. They've already been to a Super Bowl with him.
Yeah.
And they can win on defense. They were never going to be able to win with Trey Lance. Now, all of a sudden, they can still win. So, I mean, they're a blessed franchise because they were going to do everything wrong. And the franchise god said, no. You're the 49ers. You don't make that many mistakes. Hold on a second. The earth is going to move. The axis is going to tilt. Trey Lance is going to get hurt for the year and everything's going to settle down. So that's like being one of those blessed franchises. And right now, if I was saying pound for pound, who's the best team in the NFC besides my Super Bowl predicted Eagles, who clearly look like that, the Niners would be the second team I would take because they have the best unit of all the teams in the NFC. The Niners defense and their defensive line specifically is game wrecking. And so the NFC kind of looks crappy. So I would take the Niners defense as being the most dangerous unit in the NFC.
You know, the thing that I still don't understand is if the 49ers are a win now team, why would you put Trey Lance in there?
Wouldn't you invest the third overall pick in a guy and you think he's going to be the next, Pat Mahomes? And they also thought that their system was so quarterback friendly, his athleticism would shine. You also get complacent. Garoppolo doesn't do enough that wows you.
Yeah, but
and
he
sometimes
wins.
You make the mistake of thinking like, well, we can't take the next step because he's limiting us. Versus, but what if we drop at quarterback? Then we really waste a win ready, a win now team. And I think they were going to make that mistake. Plus, you have to justify it. How they can't sit him a second year when he's the third pick in the draft.
No, but
it's not like it's Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre is sitting there. It's Jimmy Garoppolo. Is Trey Lance going to sit for a second year because Jimmy Garoppolo's there?
I don't know. Listen,
well, they're a blessed franchise because it's going to work out for them.
Yeah, it's whatever.
Because if you tell me who's the favorite to win the NFC West right now, I do not like what I see with the Rams right now.
No, not at all.
Just don't. Not at all. The Bills walked in there and whooped them. The Niners whooped them. Hard to love the Rams right now.
No, it really is. So San Francisco, I agree. I think they are the class out of the West. Let's give out our game ball for the week, and I've got three deserving candidates. One of them, the man, the myth, the legend, Geno Smith, 23 for 30, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns, a 132.6 passing rating in a 48-45 thriller over the juggernaut Detroit Lions. Running back Rashard Penny, 17 rushes, 151 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Nothing wrong with that either.
Nothing wrong with that.
And our third choice is the San Francisco defense. They held the Rams to 9 points. They had 7 sacks, 11 QB hits, 5 pass deflections, and a pick 6 in a 24-9 beatdown of the Rams. Who do you give your game ball to this week, Mr. Phil?
I'm going to give it to him sort of like for 2 reasons. I'm going to give it to Geno Smith more as he's had an excellent season already, and he's never going to get this again. So let's give Geno the game ball. This might be the time you got like your worst player on your travel baseball team gets like 1 hit, and you're like, if I don't give him the game ball today, he's never getting it. I'm giving Geno the game ball. Geno
is playing good ball. I don't know how he's doing it.
He's taking 10 years of being bad, and he's taking all the lessons learned, and he's turning it into being good this year.
When you look at him, he's actually 3rd in the league in passer rating with a 108 passer rating. And he leads the league in completion percentage at 77%, or basically double what Justin Fields is. Just putting it out there.
Incredible season.
So now it's time for my favorite part of the show, and that is fill up your bank account. My man, 3-1 last week, decides to take that extra game, goes back over 500 at 7-6, 2-2 with the lock.
Yep.
Is this the start of a massive winning streak for you, Phil?
Is it the start of a massive winning streak? I don't know about that, but I'm taking 3 games again. I can tell you that. 4 games. I'm sorry, 4 games again.
All right, what we got?
So we're gonna start with the Thursday night game. We got the Colts traveling to Denver on a Thursday night. Both teams have issues.
Yeah.
The Colts have an owner coming out basically saying, I'm going to get ready to fire everyone because we're underachieving mightily. GM, head coach, quarterback. He's ready to can everyone. So there's that. And you got the Broncos, who are 2-2, but it's just ugly. It's
It's
just been
so
ugly, like ugly, right? And Nathaniel Hackett, I mean, the whole thing is ugly. And I'm going to go like this. Of the two teams, who do I think is more likely to figure it out? Who do I think has a little bit more talent? And who do I like better at quarterback? Who do I trust more? I'm going to take Denver. I'm going to lay 3 points at home with Russell Wilson. And I also just think that's a tricky place to play.
yeah.
Some people don't adjust to the altitude. It's a short rest week. I don't know how much the Colts are going to galvanize around an owner saying, I'm ready to fire everyone. Maybe they will, but I'm going to take Denver, lay the 3 on a Thursday night.
All right.
Next game. The game is at 9:30 in the morning, which means ding, 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 ding. It's in Tottenham Stadium in London. We're going back to London again. Except this time, little known fact, it's the first time an NFL game has went to London with both teams over 500, believe it or not.
Really?
Interesting little tidbit, because
That is
usually they used to dump the bad teams in London, but now they've decided maybe if we want to market the sport properly, we should send some good teams,
Yeah.
or at least send some household names.
Yeah.
So when you send the Packers, obviously that's big time. The Giants weren't supposed to be good this year. I'm still not sure they are good this year, but here's the thing with this game. The Packers are laying 8. Very hard right now for me to see the Packers covering an 8-point spread. They're a mess right now.
Yeah.
And I don't love the Giants, obviously, but 8 seems like a lot. It just seems like a lot for a team that's struggling to score at all. I think Barkley can give the Packers a bit of fits. I also think the Giants' game plan is going to be to control the clock, so I think they might limit possessions on Rodgers. So 8 in a neutral site feels like a little much. Now
Yep.
they could turn around and blow the Giants out. The Giants haven't played a bad game yet. I don't know what the Giants are. I'm on the record as saying I don't think the Giants are a playoff team. I don't think they're particularly good. They had a weak schedule, but 8 seems like a lot for what I've seen from the Packers right now. So I'll
Okay.
take the Giants plus 8.
Okay.
Then also gonna take a team that just right now, despite me not thinking they're very good, are playing really good, and that's the Seahawks are getting 5 points at New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans shouldn't be given 5 points against anybody right now. They just shouldn't be. Like, and I know usually I go the other way and say Vegas knows more than I do, and maybe I should take the Saints and not even think about it. But Geno Smith's playing really good ball. He doesn't have to win this game. He's just got to keep playing good ball. He's got a lot of confidence. I think DK Metcalf's going to be a problem for the Saints to cover.
Yep.
And I'll just take the Seahawks and get the 5 points and feel like a 5.5. I'm sorry, 5.5 points. And I think that's a fairly decent pick there.
Yeah.
I just don't like the way the Saints are playing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with that. And then my best bet, I took this team last week as my best bet based on desperation. This week, I'm taking them as my best bet based on the fact that I thought they were going to be a good team before the season started, and I'm not giving up on them. The Raiders go to Kansas City on Monday night. They get 7 points. I think the Raiders play a big-time game. Maybe they lose a shootout, but I think they play a great game. I think this is a spot for Carr and Adams, why they came together. And I think national game of the week, Monday Night Football. And again, I get 7. So I'm going to take the Raiders plus the 7. I think the Chiefs are due to have like not as great of a game. Division rival, 7's a lot. I don't like the Chiefs defense. I think it's a high scoring game. Chiefs might win, but I think it's a high scoring game.
Nice.
So Giants, I'm taking points a lot. Taking 8 with the Giants, taking 5.5 with the Seahawks, 7 with the Raiders, and then laying a little field goal with Denver on tomorrow night. And that's where I'm at.
I like it, man. They look like good picks to me, man. I'm thinking 4-0. I'm just putting it out there.
Hey, 4-0 would head us right back on the pace we were in last year. Let's go.
So what are you going to bet on this game? This 4. What are you going to bet?
I feel good. I feel mortgage payments back in the house.
Oh, back to the mortgage payment. I love it. Well, some of you might be out on the street. Some of you might be enjoying yourself. We'll keep our fingers crossed. But I wanted to end the show with just one thing that I saw, which I can't believe this didn't get more press. But the great Blake Bortles announced his retirement the other day. Honestly, I didn't realize he was still playing. I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah. I concur.
But remember, this guy did once have 4,500 yards passing and 35 touchdowns in a season. So,
which tells you one thing: there's hope for Geno this year.
That's right. That's exactly right. So, Great show as always. A lot of good stuff going on. I hope everybody enjoyed it. If you like us, keep watching. Let us know you like us. If you don't, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell everybody that you know. Let's continue to grow this thing and have fun with it. And we'll look forward to see how Phil did this week and kind of get right into the playoffs next time we talk. But hope everybody has a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
Take care.